There's something most men never realize until it's too late. The power you have in any relationship isn't measured by how much you give. It's measured by your willingness to walk away from what doesn't serve you. That simple truth changes everything. Because the moment you truly understand your own worth and stop making someone else the center of your universe, you become magnetic in a way you never were before. Today, we're going to explore something that happens all the time but rarely gets discussed honestly. What actually goes through a woman's mind when she realizes you're no longer emotionally invested the way you used to be? This isn't about playing games or manipulating anyone. This is about understanding human nature at its core. When you constantly make yourself available, when you're always the one initiating, always the one trying harder, something happens in the other person's psychology. They begin to take you for granted, not because they're bad people, but because humans naturally assign less value to things that come too easily. It's uncomfortable to admit, but it's true. And once you see how this pattern works, you'll never look at your relationships the same way. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine there's a restaurant in your town. It's decent, nothing special, but it's always open and always has empty tables. You know you can walk in anytime and get seated immediately. Now, imagine another restaurant across the street. Same quality food, but there's always a line. Reservations book out weeks in advance. Which one feels more valuable to you? The psychology is identical in relationships. When someone knows you're always available, always waiting, always ready to drop everything for them, they unconsciously categorize you as the restaurant with empty tables. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The moment you stop being so available, the moment you redirect your energy back into your own life, something shifts. And that shift creates a series of reactions that most men completely miss because they've never seen it from this angle before. These reactions aren't random. They follow a pattern that's been repeated millions of times throughout human history because they're rooted in something deeper than logic. They're rooted in survival instincts and ego protection mechanisms that existed long before modern dating even began. The first thing that happens is complete disorientation. Think about someone who's been walking the same route to work every single day for years. They know every crack in the sidewalk, every storefront, every traffic light. Then, one morning, everything's different. The coffee shop that was always on the corner is gone. The street signs have changed. That person doesn't just notice the difference. They feel genuinely disturbed by it. Their autopilot system just crashed. That's exactly what happens in her mind when your behavior pattern changes. She's been operating on a set of assumptions. She assumed you'd always text first. She assumed you'd always be the one making plans. She assumed your attention was a constant resource she could access whenever she felt like it. These weren't malicious assumptions. They were just patterns she'd observed and internalized. So when those patterns suddenly break, when you're not texting first anymore, when you're genuinely busy with your own life, her internal system throws up warning flags. Something's wrong. Something's changed. And she needs to figure out what. But here's what makes this so powerful. Her disorientation isn't about love, at least not initially. It's about losing something she thought was permanently hers. Your attention represented a form of security for her. It confirmed that she was desirable, that she mattered, that she had value in your eyes. When that confirmation stops coming, she experiences what psychologists call a narcissistic injury. Her ego takes a hit because the mirror you held up that reflected her importance back to her just went dark. Let me tell you about Marcus. He spent 6 months in a situationship with a woman named Amber. She was hot and cold, sometimes affectionate, often distant. Marcus would text her good morning every day. He'd make all the plans. He'd work around her schedule. And Amber? She'd respond when she felt like it. She'd cancel plans last minute. She'd go days without reaching out. Marcus felt like he was constantly auditioning for a role he'd never actually get. Then something changed. Not because he wanted to play games, but because he genuinely got tired. He stopped texting first. He started saying no to last-minute plans. He joined a gym, reconnected with old friends, and threw himself into a work project he'd been postponing. Within 3 days, Amber texted him asking if everything was okay. Within a week, she was suggesting they meet up. Within 2 weeks, she was asking why he seemed different. Marcus didn't explain himself. He just kept living his life. And that's when Amber's behavior completely transformed. The woman who used to leave him on red for hours was now responding within minutes. The woman who was too busy for him suddenly had all the time in the world. What happened? Did Amber suddenly fall in love? No. What happened was that Marcus stopped being a sure thing, and that uncertainty triggered something primal in Amber's psychology. When you remove guaranteed access to your attention, you force the other person to work for it. And humans have a strange quirk. We value what we have to work for far more than what's freely given. After the initial shock wears off, the next phase begins. Suddenly, she's noticing you again. And I mean really noticing you. The person who barely responded to your messages is now initiating conversations. The person who was always vague about plans is now making specific suggestions. The person who seemed indifferent to your life is now asking questions about what you've been up to. This isn't coincidence. This is psychological predictability. Here's the mistake most men make at this exact moment. They see her renewed interest and immediately think, finally, she's coming around. So they rush right back into old patterns. They start chasing again. They become overly available again. And just like that, they hand all the power back. The woman learns a dangerous lesson. If I pull away, he chases. If I show a little interest, he's mine again. This creates a toxic cycle that can last for years. The right move is counterintuitive. When she starts giving you more attention, you don't ignore her, but you also don't reward it with desperation. You remain consistent. You stay focused on your own priorities. You engage, but you don't explode with enthusiasm. Think of it like training a puppy. You reward good behavior with calm acknowledgement, not with frantic celebration that makes the puppy think every small action deserves a parade. When she texts you, you respond, but maybe not immediately. When she suggests plans, you check your actual schedule. Instead of clearing everything to accommodate her, you treat her interest as nice, but not necessary. Because genuinely, that's what it should be. This leads directly into the third reaction, and it's one of the most revealing: jealousy. Even if she wasn't treating you like a priority before, the thought of someone else getting your attention drives her crazy. This isn't about love. This is about possession and ego. She might not want to be with you fully, but she definitely doesn't want anyone else to have you either. You'll see this manifest in subtle ways. Suddenly, she's paying attention to your social media. She's noticing who likes your posts. She's asking casual but pointed questions about who you've been spending time with. If you mention going out with friends, she wants to know who was there. If you post a photo, she's analyzing every detail in the background. This behavior reveals something critical. Even though she wasn't making you a priority, she had mentally categorized you as hers. Your attention was her possession. And now that possession is slipping away. Some men try to make women jealous on purpose by talking about other women or posting thirst traps online. That's amateur hour. Real power doesn't come from manufactured jealousy. It comes from genuinely living a full life that naturally includes other people. When you're out with friends having real fun, when you're pursuing hobbies that energize you, when you're building something meaningful in your career, that authentic engagement with life is what triggers her jealousy, because she can sense that your happiness isn't dependent on her anymore. And that's terrifying to someone who took your focus for granted. Then comes the testing phase. And this is where a lot of men get tripped up, because they don't recognize it for what it is. She'll start doing things specifically designed to measure your reaction. Maybe she mentions another guy casually in conversation. Maybe she takes hours to respond after you've texted her, even though she used to respond quickly when you were chasing. Maybe she acts a bit colder just to see if you'll panic and start pursuing again. These aren't accidents. These are tests. Think of a scientist running an experiment. She's testing whether your new behavior is real or just a temporary strategy. If you react with jealousy, If you start chasing again, if you get defensive or insecure, she knows your shift wasn't genuine. You were just playing a game, and she won. But if you remain unfazed, if you don't take the bait, if you continue being consistent in your own life, regardless of her little experiments, then she realizes something powerful. You've actually changed. You're not the same man she could easily manipulate with breadcrumbs of attention. I know a guy named Terrence who experienced this perfectly. He'd been seeing Diana for a few months. She was beautiful, charming, and extremely inconsistent. Terrence finally pulled back and started focusing on himself. Diana noticed immediately and started testing him. She'd post photos with other guys. She'd mention how busy she was. She'd respond to his messages with one-word answers. Old Terrence would have panicked. He would have doubled his efforts and tried to win her back with more attention. New Terrence? He just kept going to the gym, hanging out with friends, and working on his side business. He didn't ignore Diana, but he didn't prioritize her games either. After 2 weeks of getting zero reaction from Terrence, Diana changed her approach completely. The test stopped, the games ended. She reached out genuinely and asked if they could talk. That's when Terrence knew he'd won, not because he defeated Diana, but because he defeated his old need for her validation. As this process continues, you'll notice wild emotional swings from her. One day she's warm and affectionate, the next day she's cold and distant. These swings aren't about you. They're about her internal struggle between ego and genuine interest. Part of her wants to pull you back in to restore her sense of control. Another part of her is genuinely starting to see you differently and is scared of that new perspective. Most men react to these mood swings by swinging right along with her. When she's warm, they're ecstatic. When she's cold, they're devastated. This is exactly what she's subconsciously hoping for because it confirms that her emotions still control yours. The powerful move is to remain emotionally stable, regardless of which version of her shows up. If she's cold, you don't chase warmth. If she's warm, you don't overflow with gratitude. You stay centered. You stay consistent. Imagine you're a mountain. Weather changes constantly. Storms roll in, sunshine breaks through, wind howls, calm settles. But the mountain doesn't change with the weather. It remains solid and unmoved. That's the energy you need to embody. Her emotional weather will shift constantly, but your foundation stays firm. This is when something remarkable happens. She starts asking herself a question she never asked before. Who is this guy, really? When you were chasing her, she had you figured out. You were the guy who wanted her. Simple as that. But now you're a mystery. You're the guy who walked away from chasing her to build something for himself. You're the guy who doesn't crumble when she pulls back. You're the guy who seems genuinely content with or without her attention. And that mystery is intoxicating. Human beings are naturally curious creatures, especially about things we can't quite figure out. When she can't predict your behavior anymore, when she can't manipulate you with the same old tactics, she becomes genuinely curious about what changed. This curiosity is far more powerful than attraction based on looks or charm because it engages her mind, not just her emotions. She'll start paying closer attention to you. She'll notice small details she never cared about before. She'll ask questions that seem casual, but are actually attempts to understand your new frame of mind. Why are you different? What are you focused on? Who's influencing you? These questions swirl in her mind because you've become unpredictable, and unpredictability is magnetic. The key here is to never fully explain yourself. Don't sit her down and give her a detailed breakdown of your transformation journey. Don't explain that you pulled back because you read something or watched something or decided to change your strategy. That kills the mystery instantly. Instead, let your actions speak. Stay busy with real pursuits. Maintain your boundaries. Show through behavior, not words, that you're a man with options and standards. Finally, if you maintain your frame through all these stages, you reach the ultimate shift. Respect. This is different from attraction, different from interest, different from curiosity. Respect is the foundation that everything else is built on. Without respect, attraction fades. With respect, attraction deepens into something sustainable. She begins to respect you when she realizes that you respect yourself enough to walk away from situations that don't serve you. She respects you when she sees that your happiness doesn't depend on her mood. She respects you when she understands that you have standards and you're willing to enforce them, even if it means losing her. This kind of respect changes how she treats you fundamentally. A woman who respects you doesn't play games because she knows you won't tolerate them. A woman who respects you invests effort because she understands that your time and energy are valuable. A woman who respects you communicates clearly because she knows you won't chase mixed signals. Everything improves because the foundation is solid. But here's the part most men miss. This respect only continues if you continue being the man who earned it. If you slide back into old patterns the moment she starts treating you better, the respect evaporates immediately. She learns that your boundaries were temporary, that your standards were negotiable, and that she can go back to taking you for granted. Respect isn't a one-time achievement. It's a daily practice of maintaining the standards that created it in the first place. So what does all this mean practically? It means that your worth isn't determined by how much someone else values you. It's determined by how much you value yourself. When you genuinely prioritize your own growth, your own peace, your own goals, you naturally become less available for people who don't appreciate you. And that unavailability, born from self-respect rather than strategy, creates a magnetic effect. The woman who took you for granted suddenly sees you clearly. The attention she dismissed becomes precious. The time she wasted becomes something she wishes she could reclaim. But more importantly, you see yourself clearly. You realize that your happiness was never dependent on her validation. You understand that walking away from what doesn't serve you isn't giving up. It's leveling up. This entire dynamic teaches you something invaluable. People treat you how you teach them to treat you. If you accept breadcrumbs, that's what you'll get. If you accept inconsistency, that's what you'll receive. But if you set a standard and maintain it calmly and consistently, people either rise to meet it or remove themselves from your life. Either outcome is a win because you end up surrounded only by people who genuinely value what you bring. The journey from being taken for granted to being genuinely respected isn't about changing her. It's about changing yourself. It's about building a life so fulfilling that anyone who wants to be part of it has to bring real value. It's about understanding that your attention, your time, your energy, these are premium resources that should never be given away carelessly. When you truly internalize this, everything shifts. You stop chasing, you start attracting, you stop begging for scraps, you start commanding respect. And the people who are meant to be in your life will recognize your value and treat it accordingly. The ones who don't will naturally fall away, making room for better connections. That's not loss. That's life getting better.